When he saw what kind of condition I was in and how severe I was, his jaw dropped, his eyes bugged out. I knew I was in bad shape. Well, the cemetery is an old slave yard Civil War cemetery, and it has not been taken care of the last several years, and I found it very interesting, and I decided to start cleaning it up myself.
The cemetery is about 300 yards away from the house, but you can't see it from the house. It's in the woods where it's, covered over.
So I noticed some large oak trees that were starting to lean in a direction to where it could do some damage to the headstones. So I knew they had to come down. I was already in my vehicle, and I realized I didn't have my knife in my pocket. And being in the woods just about my whole life, you just never go in the woods without a knife. And I came back into the home to get my knife. The tree was about 18 inches around. It was a good-sized oak tree. Probably about 70 feet high. The hardest part was the rigging of these ropes. After that was set, everything was right. I cut the tree down. It fell perfectly, no problem. The job was over and done with. That's when I walked over to disconnect my ropes. The secondary rope that had been wrapped around one side of the wire of the tree, as I had disconnected it and turned to walk away, not realizing there was still a lot of tension on the main guideline, it started to whip around the tree, but I was already turning, never saw it. And the last loop, it came way out from the tree, hit me in the wrist, shattering my watch, leaving a large bruise on my chest, and then implanting itself in my neck. At that time, it yanked me right up against the tree. This is when I realized I was in serious trouble. I started pulling on the rope. I couldn't move it. After the rope, the hook went into my neck and pulled me up against the tree. I was pinned. I was starting to run short on air. I was getting frustrated, mad, and scared at the same time. After tugging on the rope itself and not being able to move, I called 3 times for anybody. Hopefully somebody would hear me.
It had been about 45 minutes or so after he had gone into the woods. I'm sitting on the couch, and my dog Dusty was outside, and she let out a weird type of howl. Now, she howls at ambulances. That sounds like a wolf, but this was something I had never heard before, and she had done it twice. I went outside, and I asked her, "So what's going on, girl?" And I listened, and I didn't hear anything, so I just went back in the house. And that's, unbeknownst to me, that's when he had been calling out.
And the only thing I could possibly do was grab that rope with both hands and rip it the rest of the way out of my neck. As I grabbed that rope, I will never forget, I had a light appear before my face, and it started off just like a star and slowly covered my whole face. Very calm, soothing voice said, "Kevin, reach for your knife." At that time, everything was under control. My breathing, I was calm. I reached for my knife. About 4 cuts on this 1-inch rope released. It shot forward 50 feet. I sat down alongside the tree, starting to check how bad the damage was. And no matter where I stuck my hand, it went into my neck.
Right after I walked back in the house and went to sit on the couch, the phone rang. It was Kevin. He goes, "Call an ambulance."
I decided to call 911 myself to make sure she got through. The operator answered the phone. I started to explain to her what took place. She didn't understand what was happening when I said there was a hook lodged in my neck, that I'm back in a cemetery cutting a tree down. For some reason, she was thinking a fish hook. And then she asked me to explain again what took place. I said a large 4-inch tow hook. That's when she called her supervisor over. She wanted me to continue speaking to her so she can evaluate my condition. The frame of mind I was in at that time, and I knew the condition was severe. I needed to hear her voice because I didn't believe I was going to hear my wife Sharon or anybody else that day. I thought I was finished. I wasn't moving at that time. I was afraid to even look down. I had my neck clamped, or at least I thought I had it clamped. I needed to hear her voice, but I was in a state of confusion because I didn't think I was going to make it out of there that day. And I was tempted to hang up with her and call my wife.
I wanted to go to him, but I knew not everybody could find the cemetery. So I'm torn. I'm not real sure what to do, so I just stood there waiting for the ambulance to arrive. And it was a good thing I did because the first vehicle passed me, and I'm waving my arms, screaming, "No," and pointing, and the second one spotted, and that's when they went across the fields towards him.
I could hear the sirens. I could hear them getting closer. I could hear them coming into the field, and then I could hear voices. And I yelled, "I'm back here." I told the operator they're close. I could hear her telling them the same thing. And finally, when one of them appeared in my sight, I said, "They're here, thank you." And she says, "Thank you, and goodbye." Other people started to arrive, evaluate my condition, checking all my vitals. Same time, I was still waiting for my wife to show up. Where is she at? I know she was concerned. Finally, she showed up.
I had to compose myself because his head was tilted back, and it looked very bad.
I just looked at her. I said, "Honey, how bad is it?" She goes, "You did one heck of a good job." He pulled my hand off my neck, and I was watching his eyes. When he saw what kind of condition I was in and how severe I was, his jaw dropped, his eyes bugged out. I knew I was in bad shape. They immobilized the hook. They taped it to my chest because they knew it was too close to any serious blood vessels that could have already been damaged. And if one of them ruptured, there wasn't anything they could do. When I asked to see my wife before they loaded me up, she said, "I will see you in a little while," and gave me a hug and a kiss. I think it was a little bit of time, probably within a half hour, 40 minutes before Sharon came up to my side.
And that's when he broke down crying, because it was over.
I survived because I know that day I was not there alone. Whatever it was that I saw that told me to reach for my knife is probably what saved my life.